Is Nigel Farage the next Liz Truss? 020 7862 2222 is the number. Tell us what you think. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has attacked Mr Farage in a speech calling him Liz Truss 2.0 over criticisms that the Reform Party leader's economic policies would crash the economy.
He set out economic plans that contain billions upon billions of completely unfunded spending. Precisely the sort of irresponsible splurge that sent your mortgage cost, your bills, and the cost of living through the roof. It's Liz Truss all over again.
So the policies he's talking about include pledging to reverse the winter fuel payments cut, lifting the two-child benefit cap and raising the threshold for paying the basic rate of income tax to £20,000. So let's just have a look at what's going on here, the politics of this. Come over to our board and meet the Reform Party leader. And what Keir Starmer is trying to do here is to create an association between Nigel Farage and that former Prime Minister who lasted all of 49 days, Liz Truss, whose premiership is generally regarded, even by the staunchest Conservatives, as an unmitigated disaster. So can he tie them two of them together? Can he convince us that Farage and Truss are two halves of the same coin? That is the question. Now, in the background to what we're discussing is this massive number. This is a debt clock. It shows the total amount the country owes. And it's stupendous. This is £3.17 trillion. Let's have some context here, OK? The last six digits are a million. We understand what a million is. A billion is 1,000 million. A trillion is a million millions. So we have here more than 3 million millions in debt, which means that anyone who walks into number 10 is immediately confronted by that figure. And when you look at that figure, you work out what you want to spend money on, and you swiftly work out you've got to do stuff to raise the money. You can tax more, you can borrow more, if the banks allow it. And the third option is you can pray, which seems to be what Liz Truss did. So she brought in a series of policies that she had not calculated in terms of the effect on the national debt. Abolition of the top tax rate, reduction of the basic income tax rate, which are effectively almost like spending. They're costly. Cancellation of the planned rise in corporation tax, reversal of a national insurance increase, scrapping it goes on and on, doesn't it? The result, the pound plummeted, borrowing costs surged, mortgage lenders withdrew products.
I am a fighter,
the bank, here she comes. She says, I'm a fighter, not a quitter. And the next day,
I am resigning.
The very next day. The episode showed us the only people more powerful than governments are people who lend to governments. So this is an AI photo of essentially the Prime Minister having to go on bended knee with these bankers. It takes us to James Carville, Clinton's associate. I used to think if there was reincarnation, I wanted to come back as the president or the Pope. I now want to come back as the bond market because you can intimidate anyone. So this is Labour talking about Farage. Up to £80 billion worth of unfunded tax cuts. They also then remind us that Farage initially described the Truss mini-budget as the best Conservative budget since 1986. You can see what Keir Starmer is doing. He wants us to almost meld those two faces together. So, Tim Montgomerie, you are part of Reform, Nigel Farage's party now. Do you think this is a valid attack?
I don't, actually. Look, if Reform have any chance of coming to power, it'll be in the context of both the two main parties having failed economically. The Conservatives failed over the last 14 years. And frankly, it's a bit rich from a Prime Minister that before the election said he didn't have any need to raise taxes. Then a few months later, he did a £40 billion increase in taxes, the largest tax increasing budget in our history. So, he should concentrate on governing this country, not attacking Reform. But what I think was very good what you did just then, Jeremy, was painted the big picture. This country is on the edge of potentially a major borrowing crisis. And so Reform have got to get their numbers right. Absolutely, they've got to get their numbers right. But 3 years out from an election, all the numbers, making them add up when we don't know what's going to happen with the public finances, I think it's premature.
What about that, Jemma? All Farage is doing is sort of dipping his toe in the water at this stage.
Yeah, so therefore, why are we even talking about it? We're years away from a general election, and at the moment, those things sound great, but they are completely uncosted.
Well, why is Keir Starmer talking about it then?
But, I don't know. But the other thing is, you can tie Farage to Truss. You can also tie Farage to Trump. And look what Trump's done. They've had the first contraction in the economy in 3 years. You can also tie Farage to Andrew Tate. He's had his arm round him going, he's a great role model for young men. And you can tie him to Brexit, which has made our country way worse off, which he said it wouldn't. I would love you to find a fisherman or a farmer or a small business that trades with Europe who thinks that Nigel Farage was backing...
Why is he so popular? Why, if all of that is true, why
because
is he leading
he is
the polls?
tapping into a disenfranchised population who are fed up with the Tories because they have absolutely screwed the country.
Fed up with Labour
and
as well.
Absolutely, yes, fed up with Labour. And you got all, but I would like to make a point.
Well,
Another one.
Yeah, hang on, Jeffrey's raring to go.
Okay.
No, I'll come back to you. Go on, Jeffrey. What do you think what Jemma said? She right?
Well, I come back to, I think, the more important point. It's the finance. We don't think it's Britain. It's the whole of Europe. It's the United States. We were meant, when you lived to the age of 70, you retired at 65, lived to the age of 70, collected your gold watch, they could deal with pensions.
Yep.
They could deal with the country. But if you go on living to 90 and 100 and you're longer in retirement than you are in work, any government, any person has a major problem. And Keir Starmer was making the point.
Yeah.
And it's a fair point. It's a fair point. It's impossible nowadays to cost anything. In my days, it was possible to cost things.
OK,
it's no longer
so
possible.
Natalie is in Buckinghamshire. What do you think, Natalie? Is this fair to call Farage Truss Part 2?
Hi, good morning, everyone. As a taxpayer and as a voter, I'm getting to the point now where I'm really sick and tired of Keir Starmer or Nigel Farage just say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. At the end of the day, we are far along from a general election. Maybe Keir Starmer should put all his efforts into running the country first before acting like a child on the playground and say, he's taken my toy.
Do you? Yeah, because people are saying that the reason Starmer has suddenly decided to do this speech, called everyone into a speech that hadn't been in his diary, is because he's actually really worried about Farage now.
Correct.
And that's fine. But he needs to concentrate on running this country. It's going to pot. The economy is going to pot. My wages and my husband's wages, we're making them stretch to pay household bills.
Yeah. Well, I think this is...
So maybe he should focus on that instead of...
Jemma. Hang on, Natalie, just going to bring Jemma back in.
I agree, Natalie, and I'm also personally very bored of the somewhat sexist media narrative which gives Farage so much airtime. 23% of young women aged 18 to 24 voted for the Greens in 2024. 12% of young men of the same age voted for reform, and yet all we're hearing about is young men love reform. What about the young women? It's so
Reform
bad.
got more votes than the Lib Dems, didn't they, in the elections?
I don't think Reform is ever going to get Gemma's vote. That's clear. But
there's a chance.
But what matters about what Farage is doing at the moment? It isn't just about immediate politics. You talk to a pensioner who lost their winter fuel allowance. There's one main reason why they're going to get it back is because Nigel Farage has been campaining on it.
Yeah, but
and
we can't afford it. As I say, no one's costed giving it back.
And the two-parent cap will happen now. They'll be lifted because of Farage's campaigning.
That is a good thing.
Yeah,
that will lift children.
This is proper opposition. What I object to, Jeremy, is these numbers. Of course, look after the pennies, the pounds take care of themselves. But these are £3-4 billion. The thing that's bankrupting the country is rebuilding our defences is going to cost £150 billion over the next 10, 15 years. The ageing population is going to add £200 billion in the next few years. Those are the big numbers.
All right.
And we don't talk about
Jeffrey wants
those.
to just say a quick word.
The point you made is the one. Why is Keir Starmer doing this? Because he's frightened of reform. Yeah. That's the reason he's doing it. If Margaret Thatcher's golden rule was ignore the opposition, I swear she would have ignored them. She would have ignored them.
Yeah,
and he has come out full tilt, making a fuss and a noise.
Okay.
He will.
We're taking
he's primarily a politician.
Let me take our break, guys. And we'll hang on, Jeffrey. Hang on. Pause.
Oh, you're still here.
Hold your horses. So more calls coming. Listener, viewer comes first here, OK? Whether Nigel Farage is the next Liz Truss, you call us 0207 862 2222. Let's hear from William in Clackmannanshire. Do you think he's Truss 2.0?
Jeremy, no, I think this is desperate. I think this is laughable. I think this is pure political theatre from a man who leads what I call the chameleon party. Labour constantly shapeshift to chase votes rather than stand for anything real. Farage is no Liz Truss, but because he's not a product of the Westminster bubble, and he's someone who's here to bring about change. And I've been listening to what your panel have been saying this morning, and they're talking about taxes, and they're talking about what is being done, and you talked about Liz Truss, and that revealed that is it really politicians in charge, or is it the bankers that are in charge? And I think we need to move to a new financial system in this country where instead of us having private bankers giving us debt, we need to have public banks that give us debt-free money.
Well,
this was done in Canada from 1938 to 1974. We need a new system.
William, if you borrow as we've borrowed in the last 40, 50 years, you will end up being owned by bankers. You can't then just simply cancel all the debt, can you? I mean, that wouldn't work. They'd even panic even more.
I encourage you to look up what happened in Canada between 1938 and 1974, where the Canadian government provided Canada debt-free money that was used for the construction of infrastructure projects and was not needed to pay back because they were borrowing from themselves. And this is the big scam that we're all involved in.
Well,
the previous
okay,
caller,
all right.
talked about how she's having to pay taxes.
William, thank you. You've managed to do that without even breathing. Thank you. Go on.
This idea that he's not part of the elite, he's funded by fossil fuel lobbyists and billionaires. He went to a private school. He's been in Westminster and knocking about the EU. And he is not a man of the people in that regard. He speaks well to people and he resonates, but he is an elite and he's being funded
Tim,
by
you can
elite.
answer for that.
He is the greatest mob orator in my lifetime. He's better than Michael Foot. He's better than Wedgwood Ben.
Yeah.
He's better than Ian MacLeod. He's a brilliant mob orator.
He's a clever populist.
Well, I think definitely he's not a reform supporter, but he can at least be objective and recognise that he has some strengths. You're just so anti him. It's ridiculous.
No, I agree that he communicates
Let me just say
well to
something
people.
briefly, please. He's the most connected politician, I think, in the country. If you talk to pensioners, if you talk to working class people struggling with their energy bills, if you talk to people who want help to raise a kid, then Nigel Farage is more in touch than any other politician.
All right, so
certainly more in touch than Keir Starmer, who changes his policies.
I'm not a Starmer fan.
Can we take another call? Can we hang on, let's listen to David in Cumbria. Hi, David.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Yeah, well, thank you.
Panel this morning.
Yeah, lively. Yeah.
Yeah. So my view is that the problem that the Prime Minister has got is that he, as they've been saying, he's upset everybody, the farmers, the pensioners, the fishermen, the WASPy women. He broke his promise on National Insurance Council tax and energy bills.
He's reversing things now. He's reversing things. Yeah. So he might get away with the winter fuel thing. Maybe by the time of the election, no one will remember it.
I think the people will remember, actually. I don't think people have got that short a memory.
Okay.
But I know the other thing I would say about Nigel Farage, he's the most effective politician in the last 15 years. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him.
Yeah. Well, I think we can agree that without being in the House of Commons, he changed the history of this country. Because without him, Brexit wouldn't have happened.
Correct.
For better or worse. And he wasn't even an MP.
Correct.
Angela in Gloucestershire, hello.
Hello, good morning, Jeremy.
Is he another Liz Truss?
No, he is not. This is purely Starmer scaremongering, and this is what happens in this country. They scaremonger the public into not voting for something new, and we have to put up with the two-tier system that we've got now and look at the mess we're in. Starmer has got, how about this then, Jeremy? Starmer's got all the spiel, but nothing's real.
All the spiel, but nothing's real. Okay. Well,
but Trump,
he's actually running
You're wasted, Angela.
Trump won in America because of the price of eggs, because of the price of groceries and the price of fuel. They've gone up since he got in. You can say one thing and deliver another. You've got to look behind it all. And if he cares so much about pensioners, he wants to privatise the NHS. And also there's 130,000 vacancies in our care system at the moment. And if you stop all immigration, we are stuffed. We need people. Unfortunately, whichever way you look at it, British people are not taking up those jobs.
That's because we've chosen mass immigration rather than to train our own people properly. And, you know, the deficit is the big thing. And we have these massive welfare bills where we're paying people not to lead fulfilling lives. If we invest in those people, yes, we'll need certain levels of immigration, and we're lucky to have talented people come into our country. But actually, it's a short-term fix to import people rather than use our own people.
Let's go to Pauline in Essex. Hi, Pauline.
Hi.
What do you think? From the call so far, it sounds that Keir Starmer hasn't really landed a blow here. But what do you think?
Well, I think he's rubbish, but that's my
Keir
opinion.
Starmer's rubbish.
Yes. He mentioned Farage 16 times in his speech, and he said, "Do you trust this man?" Well, maybe he should reverse it and say, "Do you trust me?" I think the majority of the population, working class, would say, "No, we don't trust you. Whatever you say, you do the opposite."
Do you not worry that with Farage, he's led off here on things, money he's going to give away, let's say, and that takes us straight to Truss, who did the same, and the market simply landed on her?
Yes, I think he's got his figures wrong, and he needs somebody to back him that knows what they're talking about, to give him advice on how to put this country right. And one thing would be is to come out of ECHR, and I don't like being called a Nazi because I want this. And I think
that's another story today. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. But that's usually we might come to that later on. Thank you, Pauline, very much indeed. Wow. Thanks for all your calls. Tim, thank you for coming in, joining us. Feisty as ever.
Well, yeah, lively. I'm probably safer to leave.
And I was shocked. I mean, every single person said the same thing.
You know, the thing is, it's not the same as it was in the 70s, 80s, where you had to make all the figures stack up. People communicate through emotion now.
Yeah.
Look at Trump, you know.
Look how that's going.
Farage, maybe.